Hello everyone, welcome back. It's really nice to be with you again. So obviously last week I didn't put out my usual YouTube episode because very sadly the Queen died. Out of respect for the Queen and everyone mourning, I thought that it was very inappropriate to post my usual episode. It was quite a cheerful episode, it also was sponsored, and I just felt that it would be in bad taste to release it, so I decided not to post. And I just want to thank everybody who supported me in that decision and left me really beautiful comments. It meant a lot. Now, whether the Queen was the Queen of your country or not, I know that she meant so much to so many people. So I just want to say to you that I'm also very sorry for your loss. Now, it has been an incredibly strange week here in the UK and I guess around the world. Even though the Queen was 96 years old, I just never expected her to be gone. I mean, she's been there throughout my whole life. She was a constant presence, and I just thought that she would be here forever. I expected her to live at least till 100, and when the news came out last Thursday that the Queen was ill and that members of the royal family were heading to Balmoral, I was preparing for the worst because, you know, the Queen in the past has been in hospital for a week or so, and it's only then that Buckingham Palace released a statement to let the public know. So the fact that they released that statement on the morning, letting everybody know that the Queen was ill and that members of the royal family were going to be heading to Balmoral, I kind of knew that it was pretty serious. But even so, when I was watching the news and it was announced live that the Queen had died, I was so grief-stricken and incredibly shocked. I could not be prepared for that moment, and it was just an incredibly sad time, and I spent the next few days really mourning the loss of the Queen and feeling it deeply. For me personally, the Queen was someone who I greatly admired and looked up to. As I said before, she was there throughout all of my life, and in our nation she was the person that we looked to through good times and bad times and kind of leaned on as a pillar of hope. Even just last year during the COVID-19 pandemic, when everything was seeming to be very dark and depressing, the Queen came on television with that incredible speech that has now become famous and just soothed the nation and made us feel optimistic and hopeful for the future again. And that really is what the Queen meant to all of us. She was someone who, even though she was becoming very old, promised herself to the nation and to her duty, and literally did that until the day she died. So I'm very grateful for the Queen, and I will never forget the incredible person that she was. So even though I'm very sad about the Queen and I'll miss her terribly, I am starting to feel optimistic about the future again. We have a new king, King Charles III. Even though it's only very early days in his reign, I think he's shown himself to be a kind, compassionate and caring king. His speech about the Queen the day after she died, I thought was incredibly moving. The sorrow was etched on his face and he gave a genuine, wonderful speech. When he announced that William and Catherine were going to be the new Prince and Princess of Wales, that was the moment that really lifted me, and I began to think that time does move on, this is a new era, and everything is going to be just fine. And that is what the Queen would have wanted. She would have wanted us to celebrate her life, but also look to the future. That is what she always did. So in this video, I thought that I would celebrate the Queen's life in the most hopeful and optimistic way by reminiscing about her, sharing some of my favourite books about the Queen, and also making something delicious. The Queen loved afternoon tea, she had it every day, so I found a recipe that was one of her favourites that I thought that we would share together. So I hope that you will join me in celebrating the Queen's life. So in this past week, since the Queen died, I have been spending a lot of time reminiscing about her life and looking at some of the more happy occasions during her reign, and just remembering why I really fell in love with this remarkable person. The other day I was reading an article about the Queen's daily routine, and obviously because she was a queen, it is a lot different to most people's. She was very well looked after by all of her staff, and she lived a life that not many of us will live. So the Queen had a personal bagpiper who used to wake her up outside her window every morning by playing the bagpipes. For me, that would be a nightmare to wake up to, but it is apparently what the Queen enjoyed. Then a maid would bring in a tray with tea and the morning newspapers, open the curtains. She would then run a bath whilst the Queen slowly woke up from her slumber. The Queen would then have her morning bath, get dressed. She'd go down to breakfast at 9 a.m. Well, not go down. Her suite of rooms were all like an apartment on one level, so she'd go next door to the dining room, have breakfast for an hour, and then at 10 o'clock she would begin her daily duties. At 1 p.m. she would have a little lunch break where she'd have a gin and dubonnet, which is known to be her favourite drink. She'd go back to work, and then at 5 p.m. every day she would have afternoon tea. So I thought that this was such a nice ritual. Obviously someone who really enjoyed the daily routine to make her life run smoothly. And I do have this book, which is called Tea Fit for a Queen, and it has lots of afternoon tea recipes in here. So the one that I've decided that we should bake together today is this, and it is dark chocolate squares. Not sure whether you can see that, but it says at the top here, "There's no doubt that chocolate is a favourite ingredient in the royal household. Both Prince William and his grandmother are partial to a slice of chocolate fridge cake. See page 2 for the recipe." Now that is a recipe that I have made before on this channel, and I will link it in the description below so that you can find it. It is very delicious. While the Queen's 80th birthday cake was a rich chocolate sponge, so our dainty little cocoa squares are a tea time treat truly fit for a queen. So here they are, the chocolate squares, and I decided to do this recipe because it is a favourite, well, it was a favourite of the Queen, and also it's very simple. It is basically just butter, sugar, dark chocolate, eggs and flour, and you mix it all together and then bake it in a square pan and slice it up and add some cream on top. So I thought that in celebration of the Queen, we would bake that now. To start, I'm going to add the butter and the dark chocolate to a pan and melt this down slowly. And then I'm just going to put it to one side and leave it for a few minutes. Now I'm taking the golden caster sugar and I'm going to add in 2 eggs, and I'm going to whisk these together until silky smooth, kind of like the texture of mousse. Next I'm going to sieve in the flour and cocoa powder, and then we're going to add in the dark chocolate mix and just fold it very carefully together until combined. I'm going to bake this in the oven for 30 minutes at 180 degrees. To make the cream, I'm adding double cream to the mixer, and to that I'm going to add in a large spoonful of icing sugar and just mix these two together. have quite a few books about the Queen, and during this week I've been looking through some of my favourites and just again reminiscing about the Queen's life. And so I thought that I would share some of them with you now. So the first one that I want to share is my absolute favourite. I got this one in Barcelona about 5 years ago. It was a really lucky find because there is a book market in Barcelona that runs down Paseo de Gracia every summer. And I got this one for the very cheap price of 20 euros. And it is enormous, this book. I'm not sure whether you can tell the scale, but it's enormous. And it is called Her Majesty. It's a Taschen book, and it is filled with the most incredible pictures of the Queen. And as you can see, this is huge, so I felt very lucky to have that, and I was even prepared to pay quite a hefty luggage fee to get this back home on the airplane. So I'm gonna walk you through this one, share with you some of the most incredible pictures of the Queen, which really outline the life that she lived, and just shows you what an amazing queen she was. So immediately when we open the book, we're greeted by this pretty incredible portrait of the Queen, which is so striking because it's very simple. She's just wearing a black cloak, hardly any jewellery, no tiara or crown, yet you can tell that this is a majestic lady, a queen. Here we have the young Princess Elizabeth, greeting crowds, already doing her royal duty at such a young age that she carried through until 96 years old. I think it's a very touching photograph. Here we have this photograph of Princess Elizabeth as a young girl with her father, the king. And I think it's such a beautiful one because it shows their close relationship, but also the sense of duty. He's working through his red boxes and kind of giving the Queen, the young princess, an education on royal life and what she's going to have to expect in the course of her life when she inherits the throne, which we now know, of course, that was at a very young age, much sooner than she was expecting. Then we have this photograph of the King and Queen with their daughters, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret. I like this one. It's at Sandringham or Windsor, and it just shows a very relaxed family enjoying the summer weather, just like any normal family would be doing. Then we have this photograph of Princess Elizabeth with Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten at their engagement in 1947, the beginning of a very long union. Here we see the young princess as a mother with Prince Charles, and here with Prince Charles and Princess Anne. Then the princess becomes a queen. Here you can see the coronation procession making its way through Regent Street. That is a pretty incredible photograph. And here at the coronation. This is a very interesting series of photographs. In 1969, film crews were given access to the Queen and her family during the making of a television documentary called The Royal Family, which was supposed to show them in their daily lives. It was aired in 1969 and it has been locked away ever since. I would love to see it. And here you can see the royal family at home, Sandringham, just doing normal family things, but a lot more formal than the average family. Here I think a portrait of the Queen that is the most recognisable version of the Queen that we got used to, seeing her as an older lady, and this was by Annie Leibovitz. And these are pretty majestic photographs. So the next book that I want to share with you is written by one of the Queen's closest confidants. If you've been watching the news lately, you may have heard a lady called Angela Kelly being mentioned a lot. She was the Queen's dresser for over 20 years, and the most remarkable thing about this person is that she was working class. She was from Liverpool, born to working class parents, and she rose her way up through the palace to become the Queen's dresser. But she was not only the Queen's dresser, she also became one of the Queen's closest friends. The Queen even said that Angela was like a sister to her, which I think is so sweet and really tells you of the character of the Queen, that she was not a snob or thought she was above anyone else. She was truly a wonderful person to everyone she met, and she had this very special relationship with someone who was completely the opposite to herself, which I think is pretty special. So this book is called The Other Side of the Coin. I did mention this a few weeks ago on my channel, and this book is written by the Queen's dresser Angela Kelly, and it basically goes through what it takes to plan and prepare the Queen's wardrobe for all of her state occasions, visits, and so on. It is a really insightful book, and some of the photographs in here are pretty spectacular, things that you would never expect to see. So I'm going to share that with you now. You immediately open this one and you see this picture of the Queen casually laying on a chaise. And that's what I mean about this book being pretty surprising. The Queen that we know and love in her beautiful outfit with a hat, but such a relaxed, casual pose, something that you would never expect to see. And that just tells you of the relationship between the Queen and Angela Kelly, who she obviously really trusted, obviously shared a wonderful relationship with. And here you can see a picture of Angela Kelly with Stuart Parvin, who is a famous dressmaker for the Queen. He made a lot of the Queen's clothes. He's actually a friend of mine, and there's an interview that I did with him on my channel, which I will link so you can watch that. Angela designs for the Queen initial sketches, which are very simple, but then they become these that we're used to seeing. I thought this was interesting to show you. This is the Royal Ironing Room. So this is where all of the Queen's clothes are pressed and prepared for events, and this is at Buckingham Palace. And I always enjoy seeing behind the scenes photographs like this. This talks about the now very famous sketch that the Queen did with James Bond, Daniel Craig, for the Olympics, and how they designed that dress and how they had to make copies and stuff like that. Now I thought I would share with you this spectacular photograph of a very relaxed Queen posing with her hands in her pockets. And I'm going to read you this little paragraph from the book to explain what this photograph was all about. So it says, "Many years ago, Her Majesty disclosed something to me, a secret wish that she'd held since she was young. Throughout the Queen's time on the throne, she's been photographed in countless formal ways. However, for a long time, Her Majesty wanted to be photographed more informally and have the freedom, for example, to pose with her hands in her pockets. The Queen Mother and her advisors had always advised against this, suggesting it would not be appropriate. Some years later, when I was writing my first book, Dressing the Queen, I remembered Her Majesty's secret wish. Given that the book was all about Her Majesty's outfits and relationship with fashion, I wondered if I might have a wonderful opportunity to make the Queen's wish come true. So although I was very nervous, I finally asked the question, 'Your Majesty, would you do me a favour? I would like you to consider doing a photo shoot of yourself modelling a dress with your hands in your pockets.' The Queen looked at me in amazement as I asked whether she knew the potential implications of the photographs. She didn't take long to answer. Yes, she would do it, and yes, she was sure." What a fun story. I think it just shows the real humour of the Queen and what a funny, remarkable person she was. Well, thank you so much for joining me in this mini celebration of the Queen and her incredible life. She's someone who I'll never forget and I'll always look up to and admire. Now, it's the Queen's funeral tomorrow here in the UK, so that is going to be a solemn occasion, but again I think it's a time to reflect on her life and the amazing work that she did. So after the funeral, I will be resuming my usual posting on all social media, and next Sunday I've got a very nice episode to share with you where I show how I prepare for having house guests and how I make them feel special. So I hope you will join me for that. Sending you all my love and warmest wishes. Bye bye.